I just wanted to kick off our session, perhaps with Ezekiel first. Having lived with 3 generations under one roof, you mentioned that the relationships do change as you grow up. Was there a time when you really struggled with the generation gap, and what helped you to overcome it?
Like me personally?
Yeah, you, or maybe your friends complain about, their grandparents, I don't know, unfiltered, right? So we can share, okay?
I think this generation gap really comes into play when you grow up, and when you enter like upper primary, I especially began to become more rebellious, and my grandmother especially was the disciplinarian. So this generational gap really became obvious. Like for example, after school, I would want to go out to the playground with my friends, and she would insist that I come home and study. And even though it's these small little things, I think they're representative of how my perspective changed from always listening to my grandma to wanting to go my own way. And I think this is also represented in like the families who used to stay together. So for example, my mom's brother or my uncle, we all used to stay together, and they decided to move out, and they don't have kids currently. So I think there's a phenomenon, they call it dual income, no kids with a dog. Yeah, so I think that is the life that they chose for themselves. And I think this is another instance of how different visions for individuals for their future can diverge, and it's an instance of some form of generational gap. Yeah.
I don't know whether Prof. Thang or Hamid, you want to weigh in, whether your kids fight with you, any generation gap that you face?
I think in general, it's really about privacy, right? Whenever we talk about people, families, like even yourself, like wanting to live apart and not living together. But for me, my father-in-law lived with us, and I thought it was very convenient for me because like all the relatives would come and visit him, and then we would get to see everybody without having to go out, especially during Chinese New Year. And then also, my kids were very young at that time, and I think it was important for my father-in-law that there are children around, because then he feels a lot more, striving to be healthy and try to keep himself healthy to stay longer with the grandchildren. So one of the things we did was we got my father-in-law to be the one that's in charge of giving allowance daily. At that time, we still give money, right, to the kids when they go to school. So my father-in-law was like, every time when my son goes to school, he will really make sure that he will come to him and then give him money. So small gestures like this, I think, is important in making him feel having a role in the family. So to me, I think it's really more of privacy, that sometimes we feel that, older people might say, why are you coming back so late? And all that. I think we are like always kids, even when we are already grown up in an intergenerational family.
Hamid, do you have anything to add?
Just to add a bit, I don't see any generation gap between my grandmother and my mother, maybe because of cultural issues, but I've seen big generation gap between my wife and her children. Mm-hmm. I think it's a problem of today, because the children are exposed to social media, to the digital era. They seem to know more than her mother. So there are always differences in views. Each time when my wife says something, the children will say something else. You don't know about this. Who knows better? But my wife is quite bossy and possessive. And that's a problem that exacerbates the relationship. And they know that they have a good father figure, and that's me. So I become like a buffer, all right? And so I'm more attached to my children. They tell me, Mama like that, all right? You like that. And then even my daughter says, you're very lucky to marry my mother, my mama, all right? So much difference in your character. One is very, I won't say aggressive, bossy and so forth. And one like me, very timid. not timid lah. All right, accommodating. I think the way to improve the generation gap, really, in my view, just a single word. You just need to have effective communication, not just physically, but in the way that you conduct and behave yourself, because the children learn through observations. If you are exemplary in your conduct, I think they learn better than you telling them what to do. That means you preach, you do what you preach, and that matters most. Thank you.